Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr Podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please leave a 5-star review or 4-star, as many stars as you can handle. I got a bunch of stand-up dates that I'm so excited to share with you guys. Thank you for everybody who came out to the show in Morris Plains, New Jersey. That was a hoot. I always love meeting you guys in person. It's so much fun. The next show I will be at is actually a convention. I will be at MegaCon this upcoming weekend in Orlando, Florida. I'll be there with Anna, that Star Wars girl, and Brittany Venti. We will be doing a SimpCast live panel Saturday, 6 o'clock. I'm not sure exactly of the location yet, but we will be there. We will be representing, hanging out with the nerds. And then I'm heading to St. Louis. Wednesday, May 25th, I'll be headlining the Helium Comedy Club there in St. Louis. Then I'm heading to Illinois. Friday, May 27th, I'll be headlining the Vixen in McHenry. I believe Crip Daddy will be opening for me, and he's hilarious. If you, those of you that know him, those of you that don't and are in the area, come on out. He's a hoot. And then I'll be in Chicago Saturday, May 28th. We're doing 2 SimpCast live shows at 7:30 and 10 o'clock at Reggie's in Chicago. That'll be me, Brittany Venti, and fun guests to be announced. Then I'll be in Buffalo Saturday, July 16th for a special man cigar show. I'm very excited for this. It's going to be at Nickel City Cigars. The price of admission, I think, includes a premium cigar and 24 access to their cigar lair. I don't know. I don't know what you men call it, the cigar hangout room. So I'm very excited about that. And then I'll be headlining in Austin at the Cap City Comedy Club Thursday, September 8th. And then I'm heading to Philly Wednesday, September 14th to do the Helium Comedy Club out there in Philly. And then I'll probably eat a cheesesteak. It'll be great. I hope to see you guys there. I want to do a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode. Yes, I'm going to cue my own music. Here we go. Ooh. Guys, we've seen so many people making ridiculous money from crypto. I know things are a little hairy right now, but you can do the same. The Copy My Crypto membership site shows you the exact crypto that YouTuber James McMahon personally holds and allows you to copy him. It's like having a big brother who knows what he's doing. You don't have to know a thing about crypto or investing or about finance. You simply just do what he does. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about James. He runs the Crypto with James YouTube channel, which despite heavy censorship, has 15,000 subscribers and 1 million views. Since March of 2020, he's told his viewers to buy 26 crypto coins. Had you put $100 into each one, it would now be worth over $66K. Over the 26 coins that he picked, his top pick of the year is a coin called Phantom. It's currently up around 440 times from when he started. That one call alone has retired a number of people, including guys and girls in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is all public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify this for yourself. So if this is sounding interesting to you and you'd like to join the 1,300 members who copy James, then stop what you're doing and head over to copymycrypto.com/Mayor. That's spelled MAYR. You'll not only find proof of everything I've just said, but my listeners get full access for just $1. You won't find this offer anywhere else, but act quickly because this is a special 2022 New Year offer and it will expire soon. That's copymycrypto.com/MAYR. Check it out, guys. Make money from crypto before the economy tanks. We're having fun. We're having a good time. Yay. Okay, cool. I'm so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff. He's very smart, very sharp. I think you guys are really going to enjoy him. He is the co-host of Bob and Eric Save America on the Freedom First Network. He is a criminal defense attorney in the great free state of Florida. Welcome to the show, Eric Matheny. How are you?
Chrissie, every time I'm on with another podcaster, it makes me want to step up my game. Your intro game is top notch. You've made me want to reevaluate my whole
Wow.
podcasting platform. So very good job, and thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, what a compliment. You're the one that's impressive. You're an attorney. You're a lawyer, man. You know things.
Let me tell you something, Chrissie, for you and your guests. A lot of people put stake in degrees. I swear to you, as I sit here, some of the dumbest human beings I've ever met are lawyers.
Really?
The
Okay. Some of
dumbest
the
human beings.
dumbest people I've met are fellow communication majors and also psych majors. Got to hand it to that. Yeah, true though. Wow, that's good to know. I agree with you because I know people who have master's degrees. I don't think I know anybody with a PhD, but people get very entitled about their degrees, and they think that that equals that you're, a better person. And I also know some really sharp people who didn't finish college, didn't finish high school. So you got to just find what works for you.
I think a lot of it is just people smarts and just self-awareness and understanding the world around you. And a lot of folks, especially lawyers, law school is a lot easier to get into than med school. So when I was graduating, and I went straight from undergrad to law school, a lot of folks were a little older, and they certainly had their heads on straight because they'd actually lived real life. They'd paid mortgages, they had families. And here I am, 22, 6 months removed from being the president of a fraternity in Arizona State, and now I'm here to be a lawyer. So like guys like me, trying to become lawyers, you don't have to be a mental giant to do it. And passing the bar and things like that, if you can train yourself for the test, anybody can do it. It's the people that try to overthink it that actually fail it. So if you can dumb it down and just do whatever the book tells you to do, you're going to pass. That being said, there are brilliant lawyers out there. There are idiot lawyers out there, but it puts so much stake in a degree or in some kind of formal education that's just short-sighted. And I, tell my kids are 9 and 11. Look, if they woke up tomorrow morning and wanted to go to trade school and be long-haul truckers in this economy, I'd say, God bless you. Go do it. You'll probably make a lot more money doing it.
Definitely. So you were a president of a fraternity in college?
I was president of Theta Chi Fraternity at Arizona State University in the early
Ooh.
2000s. You guys, all you young kids going to college now, you guys are having terrible times. We went to college back before everybody had a camera on their phone. So all the things we
Oh,
did, there's no
yep.
record. There's no record of
I
it.
did
We had a
not get
great
a cell
time.
phone. I didn't get a cell phone until my junior year of college. I was fighting it. I really did not wanna be accessible, but my mom was like, "You have an internship in the city. I have to know if you're getting raped." And I was so that was I was like, "What?" Like, I don't think I would have time to call you in that situation if that's like,
It,
"Hey, mom, you're right. You were right. You were yep, a skirt. Okay, I'll see you later. I'll be home for dinner." Well, no, I might be late. Uh, so
it was a different world.
no,
It really
it was a
was a
different
different
time.
world, a totally different time. And I went to college. I left for college in August of 2000. Went out to Tempe, Arizona, from where I was from, in Calabasas, California, and I had a car phone that we plugged in. And then when I got to school, everybody had those Nokias, and that was like the hot phone to get.
Yes, my sister had one of those. Yeah, I think you and her are the same age. Yeah, she had like a tiger print Nokia. It was like all one piece, the little antenna nub was sticking out. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. You could play Snake on it. Snake, where you lay in bed at night and play Snake. So we had the phone, but nobody had the ability to take a picture. So all that I think we did a lot more stupid things than you guys are all doing now. And I say you guys being those who are in their late teens and 20s, because the social structure has changed considerably. I mean, when we went to school, it was very different. Nevertheless, had a great time, loved it, but glad I did it when I did it. I wouldn't want to be in college now.
What was the hazing process like for your fraternity?
It wasn't that bad. It was a lot of sleep deprivation, some physical, not too bad. I was one of like I was an athlete in high school, so I was a little bigger and a little more, I guess, physically imposing than some of the other guys. So I didn't
What did
get
you
beat up.
play?
I was a football player.
Okay.
So I
Good.
didn't get it bad. I got along with everybody. I think the sleep deprivation, just kind of the humility and being made to do foolish things. But whatever you say about it, but some of my best friends to this day, the people I keep in touch with on a daily basis, are from that period of my life. So I had a great time, and I certainly, a lot of things that I learned and a lot of abilities that I developed, namely being a trial attorney, is, things that you learn there. So there's a major learning curve, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So I have no regrets.
We didn't have any fraternities at Fairfield U. I was on a diving team though. We were Division 1, so but it was like the MAC conference. So it was Division 1, but like, it was I felt like a big fish in a small pool. And I remember like, oh, they would just hand us shots of Majorska, and I would be feeding them to like the house plant behind me at whatever like house we were at. It wasn't nothing too crazy. So, but yeah, definitely a good times, and I'm so happy there weren't smartphones when I was in college. Like, it's just those are not the years of your life that you should be capturing 24/7. Like, you should be knocking around figuring stuff out. So, I guess we'll see what the results are as the kids that are in college now as they like get out into the working world. I've seen so many examples. Like, I remember there was like the editor for 17 magazine ended up like somebody, had some video of her. I don't know. She was saying some word. I don't know. Some words that people took offense to, and she ended up getting fired from 17 magazine. I'm just like, all right, this is crazy. So
Exactly, and we didn't have social media, and you didn't have the ability to get drunk and put something out there that's now part of the internet record and going to follow you around for the rest of your life. So it was actually the year after I graduated was the first year they had the availability of cameras on cell phones, so it just barely missed the cutoff. But
oh wow.
yeah, we were very fortunate.
Did you after you graduated, did you go right into practicing law? Were you like a full-on lawyer or just
Well, my first job outside of law school, so I went to law school. I went right from college to law school, finished up. By the time I was 25, I was a lawyer. So I didn't have traditional 20s. I got married at 27. I didn't have typical 20s.
Oh.
Yeah, I missed that period. So my first job was actually in the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. I was a prosecutor. I started there knowing that I wanted to go criminal defense, but wanting to work on that side to learn it. And it really helps, even being out of it now 13, 14 years. It really helps to have known how things work over there, who to talk to, what to do. But I, tried a lot of cases over there. Was doing things that lawyers of my age who were at big firms who were maybe summarizing depositions and doing grunt work. I was trying armed robbery cases. So it was really fun. I loved it. I hated the money and I hated the bureaucracy, which is after 2 years, I decided I'm never working in government service ever again.
Oh wow. What drew you to criminal defense?
It's the only area of law that I really find interesting. I mean, people are going to watch the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing and go, "Oh, libel and slander. That's really interesting." Usually, it's not. That's an exception to the rule. But I've done a couple civil cases in my career, and they're terribly boring, fighting over money. But I will tell you one thing: is the fight over money is so much more contentious than the fight over life and liberty. I get along with all the prosecutors I deal with on a daily basis. When you're fighting over money, oh my goodness, like you can't be in the same room as these people.
Do you think that's because I don't know. I mean, the lawyers always have a stake. I mean, you're going to get paid a percentage no matter what, but like when it comes to money, I don't know. I just feel like it really brings out the worst in people. And like, yeah, we weren't planning to talk about the Heard and Depp trial. Like, they both have tons of money. I feel like they're both going to be okay no matter what. To me, it seems like Johnny Depp just really wants his like reputation to be somewhat cleared up, even though it might be too late for that as far as him getting work.
Well, I think it's a matter of principle for him. I think he really has to. She made some vile accusations against him, and it really impacted his career and it impacted his ability to earn. Now he's going after her for 50 million. The first thing I'm thinking of is like, she's I didn't know who she was before she hooked up with him. Does she have that kind of money? I don't think she does. I think it's more, she's probably going to declare bankruptcy if he gets a judgment. But he's doing it as a matter of principle because he's got to save face. Because she went out and she said these horrible things about him. And the more we're learning is that I think she's the more culpable party of the two of them. But I think if we take one thing away from it, it's just how weird actors and actresses these Hollywood people are. They are so weird and so detached from reality that you understand that they kind of have to exist in this bubble and they have to marry each other and kind of pair up together because ordinary pedestrians like you and I just wouldn't understand what that world is like.
They really do live in a bubble. I've noticed since the Rittenhouse trial, and now with this trial, I've noticed a lot of people are gravitating towards following um, YouTubers specifically with a law background, because it's just, I think as we all lose trust in our institutions, we look for kind of smaller journalists or smaller content creators. It's almost like you guys, like you, and I think of Nick Rekieta, and I think of Legal Bites, and a lot of these other lawyers, and I guess they call it LawTube, that I'm just now learning. That's the gang name, I guess. I find you guys to be all way more trustworthy than listening to anybody on legacy news talk about this stuff.
We don't have any bosses. We don't have producers. We don't have people telling us what to say. We just have what we know, and we know the law, and we have commentary on what we see, and we just comment on that. Now my podcast, Bob and Eric Save America, we're really not a legal podcast at all. I use my experience, my day-to-day job to weigh in, but we really think of ourselves more as social commentators. We just take a look at what's going on politically, culturally, obviously the two being intertwined with each other, and trying to just parse out what's going on. And certainly when I can, I inject my legal knowledge, but it's far more than that.
And I think it is so much. It's very helpful to have somebody with a legal background. I just think, hopefully people have more perspective now that some time has passed, like after the pandemic. But just, it's very scary looking back, like how quickly so many people were willing to throw away their rights for what seemed like perceived safety at the time. And I think we haven't even begun to see the aftermath of that. And it's just very scary what I'm hearing now about Biden possibly signing over like America's sovereignty over to the World Health Organization. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it almost feels hopeless. Like, what can any of us regular people even do at this point? Because we're so owned by China.
We are, and we failed the test. Humanity failed the test when push comes to shove, and our rights were really jeopardized. The overwhelming majority of people just laid down and said, sure, I trust you. I'll give you 2 weeks. The biggest mistake we've made in our lifetime was trusting the government. All you need is 2 weeks. And you didn't have enough of a pushback. I think if you would have seen that, I think if people would have at that point said, we're never getting our rights back, things are never going to change, push back now, they would have listened. They would have listened. But the minute you give them the foothold, the minute you give them that inch of rope, they're going to take a yard, they're going to run with it. And the effect it's had, not just on the economy, which is going to take probably a decade to recover and just kind of get back on track, assuming we ever do, is the impact it had on the psyche of people. You're going to be out 10, 15 years from now, you will see people wearing masks. That'll become just a part of day-to-day life.
It's amazing and also sad. Like, even still, right? Like the people outside, the people by themselves outside, people in their cars by themselves, still fully masked, double masked. I'm so amazed. And I'm like, did the pandemic appeal to a certain type of personality, a certain type of germaphobe? Or is this indicative of people who are more brainwashed and less of a free thinker? Are these people that are are you more likely to kind of fall for it all if you're, just you're a good little citizen, you obey, you're not, you work your 9 to 5, you haven't done anything outside the grain. It's kind of like a psychologist's dream and nightmare. I think I would like to see, it'll be interesting to see years from now, like the studies about like what, and I'm sure the government knows all of this anyway, what types of people are prone to following lockstep with everything they put out.
The pandemic took advantage of our polarization. And the fact remains is that there was one camp that was clearly on the left, the pro-mask, pro-vaccine, Dr. Fauci is our God, and there was a camp that was strictly on the right. So taking advantage of the natural divisions that have already existed, what it did is it gave people that sense of tribalism, which we inherently as human beings love being part of a tribe. You have belonging, and people found their identities in it. People found meaning and purpose. I can put this mask on and I can post my vaccine card and I can get that dopamine feedback because I'm being a good person, because I'm abiding by my tribe's ideology. And the same can be said for the right, that it gave people meaning. But the where we are culturally COVID was a perfect storm. We were going to respond exactly the way they wanted us to because we are so divided and because everything is viewed through the lens of politics. Look at what they're doing with Ukraine now. It's the same thing. You've traded that mask selfie for now a Ukrainian flag, and now we've just transitioned that anger at the anti-maskers. Now we're going at the Russians. So now that's where the ire has been transferred. So taking advantage of the natural divisions, I mean, the governments, we're all being conditioned and we're all being played. That's what people need to realize.
It's so true, and I have to remember that when I get, when I get angry, like, over here. Like, I'm in New York City, a couple times a week to do a show, and I was in there on Monday, and I overheard this lady on the phone. She was talking about, I think, a relative of hers, like, "Well, he finally got it. He finally got it." She was talking about COVID, and I told him, "If you had been vaccinated," and I was like, you know, like, love your neighbor, love your neighbor. It's a real test, and I don't know. It's easy to feel hopeless. And you tweeted something out
Uh-oh.
that I really that I love
Tweets are getting me in
because
trouble.
it's making me realize, like, yeah, America, we've been there for so many countries, and we're even there for countries where we shouldn't. We go above and beyond. We're in debt. We don't have the money to be donating to any other country, especially now. But here we are donating billions to Ukraine. And really, I don't know. I hope that it's ultimately a good thing, and that just the average person seeing how much money we're spending on Ukraine really affects people's voting. I don't know what more you would need at this point to
Well,
keep
it's
voting
it
in the Democrats, but
yeah, but it's not just the money that we're spending, it's the lack of oversight. It's this blank check, the fact that we're going to send 40 billion to Ukraine. Who's getting it? Where's it going?
yeah.
How's it going to be distributed? What's it going to be used for? Do you think that the poor, ma and pa in the village is getting bombed is going to see one penny of it? No, it's going to go to Zelensky. It's going to go to the top oligarchs because Ukraine's as much a corrupt country as Russia is. And how much of that do you think is coming back this way? How much of that do you think is coming back in the form of PACs, in the form of campaign contributions, in the form of wire transfers to Swiss banks that's going to end up in some senator's bank account? Because nobody goes into public office in 1980 making what they pay in the government and is worth $200 million 2 decades in. So how are they getting their money? It's not speaking fee and books, I'll tell you that. It's stuff like this. It's bribes, kickbacks, and money coming back in from these appropriations. So just oversight. We're the most generous nation on earth when it comes to expenditures, and when it comes to immigration, receiving refugees, we're absolutely the most generous. We just want to know where the money's going. And Rand Paul had the gumption to stand up and go, I don't want to agree to a blank check until we know exactly where it's going. I can't walk into a bank tomorrow and say, hey, give me $1 million. Well, Mr. Matheny, what do you need it for? Don't ask me that. That's racist. Just give it to me. It's the same thing. We just want basic oversight. We're not saying we're not going to help. We're just saying, first and foremost, the state of the economy right now, where we are, 40 billion is way too much. And second of all, what are you going to do with it? It looks like they're pushing the Russians back. Looks like Ukraine's doing a fine job without our aid. So what do we need 40 billion to give you for?
And I think he was saying, like, Congress only had like 10 minutes to read over this bill, like the proposed bill for the billions, like, well, the second bill, I guess, with the additional billions going to Ukraine. And it's like, how can you possibly I mean, they're assuming no one's going to read it and just feel pressured and just say yes. And it makes me so angry. Like, it makes you feel like, oh, there's just like, how is there only one guy fighting back? Like, there should be multiple guys hold it up for being passed. But fortunately, we have Mr. Paul on duty here. And I like this tweet. Where's the international community when our country is in crisis? Where's the reciprocity for the boundless generosity that we show the world? Any foreign country sending us pallets of baby formula? Yeah, now would be a good time. Like, right? Haven't we been there for so many countries over the years?
I'll tell you that if this crisis were going on in any other country, Congress would be in session overnight. We'd have plane loads, big, C-130s full of baby formula going to wherever it's needed. We would be sending blank checks. They would absolutely use the political divide to make this an issue. And you take that Ukrainian flag you have in your bio, it would become a little baby bottle emoji. And if you didn't have one too, then you're a Russian asset. We would be the first in line to help out whatever country needs it. And frankly, we need it right now. So I don't know what the problem is if the countries aren't giving it or if the FDA is putting regulations in place, but this is something, look, people at the end of the day, Ukraine, climate change are not going to be big issues. It's food shortage, it's gas prices, it's safety, things like that really impact us day to day. And I'll tell you, the baby formula shortage, we never even thought that would be a possibility in the United States. Never even thought that.
And as we kind of move away from being a world power, it's almost like, it's sad to think of ourselves that way, but it's like, all right, guys. And apparently some of the holdup with the baby formula is, I guess, with some of the foreign manufacturers, like for whatever reason, like our FDA isn't allowing them in. But it's like, I'm pretty sure they could ease that up for right now, so kids don't starve. And of course, they're censoring, a lot of these old baby formula recipes from like the 60s are circulating. And of course, we quickly have legacy media coming out with like, oh, why it's dangerous to make your own baby formula. And it's like, what if it's that? First of all, like the boomers were raised on that, and Gen X probably a little bit, and it's also better than starving. But again, they don't want you to be self-reliant at all, even when there's a shortage.
They really don't. We were talking about that on my show on Saturday, is that if you want to really get back at the federal government and make them completely irrelevant, be community minded. Get to know your neighbors, get to know the people that live on your block. And that way we rely upon each other. We create communities that when things go wrong and there are food shortages, like you could go to your neighbor, you can come to me. We need to get back to that idea and stop looking to the federal government for solutions. Now, I know that's easier said than done, and we could sit here and we can have that conversation, but these problems really affect the most vulnerable among us, because the overwhelming majority of people who purchase baby formula are getting it through WIC. They're getting it through the EBT and the welfare cards, because it's really profitable. Actually, I've been reading about these companies get these WIC contracts where they're the exclusive provider for that state.
Wow.
I mean, it works the same way like Medicare. Like you go to the hospital and they bill your Medicare for $1,500 for putting a Band-Aid on you, but we can go out, we can drive to other neighborhoods, we can go out and we could go on Amazon or go on Costco.com and order it. But if you're poor, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have the resources, the ability to really travel too far from where you live, this is affecting you. And the Democrats, the party that's in power, that you have the White House, you have Congress, these are the people that you claim to support. You're the party of the oppressed. You're the party of the downtrodden. Where are you right now? Where the hell's Pete Buttigieg? This is supply chain. This is his wheelhouse. Is he still on maternity leave? Has he gotten back?
Yeah. Let's see those stretch marks, Pete.
Yeah. Hey, he needs baby formula. He can't lactate, at least as far as I know.
Yeah, not yet. Unless the pregnant men have have stepped it up. Man. But do you think that these folks that are getting hit the hardest are associating it with who they're going to vote for?
How can you not? I mean, how can you not look to who's in power and put the blame on them? I mean, Trump got it the same way when things weren't going great. Trump gets blamed, but that's historically the president should always get blamed. I mean, Harry Truman famously said the buck stops here. It should be the president. Ultimately, shit flows uphill, and the president's got to take the brunt of what's going on, just like they get to take a victory lap, even when the victory may not be entirely theirs. So I think it will be very difficult for somebody who goes to their local grocery store, who just paid $6 a gallon to put gas in their car and can't find baby formula for their infant. I think it will be very difficult not to place that blame. And the poll numbers are reflecting that too. I mean, even, everything going on, he's, even the most liberal polls are 41% maybe. I think he's probably in the low 30s, high 20s if you really look at it.
And I saw 39% somewhere, and I was like, that is high. That's so much higher than I thought it was going to be. Damn. Like who is out there going, he's doing great. Yeah, he's maintaining the status quo. I have no idea who could possibly be happy with the job he's doing now. And when you look at Roe v. Wade popping up, you know so much more about all this than I do. It seems like, well, this is awfully convenient. Like is this a huge distraction, or is this something that's been like slowly simmering, um, kind of with Republicans wanting to overturn it? And this just happened, the timing just happens to come up when the left wing can be like, oh yeah, this is our huge issue that we can be very noisy about and release our most mentally ill into the streets.
Well, it's a campaign issue for both parties, which is why they operate the way they do. The Democrats have had multiple opportunities over the last 5 years to put it into law. They've had multiple opportunities to try to pass a constitutional amendment. They've never done that because then if it were law, then it's no longer an issue. They can't bring it up every 4 years. They
Oh
can't get
my
their party
god.
scared about it. No, they can't, because if it's
Wow.
law, okay, if they, in 1992 or something, they pass a law and say abortion is now enumerated in the Constitution. It is now an amendment to the Constitution that
Yeah.
Congress shall make no law abridging what a woman does with her body, or whatever, however you want to word it. Then, if it becomes a law, it's no longer an issue. It's settled law, and you move on. The fact that it's not, and the fact that it hinges on this decision from 1973, permits the Democrats every election cycle to go, "Oh my God, the Republicans are going to take away your reproductive rights." So
That is
they've
such
never
an
wanted to put into
interesting
law.
point that I've never heard anybody else say, is that they've had every opportunity to make this a law, make this kind of a non-issue anymore, and they just don't, so they can use it whatever they want. Wow.
They had opportunities, especially in the 90s, before the left got extreme, because there was a time period in this country where even on the right and left there was like this middle ground on abortion, where people could say reasonable limits, and we can have that debate all day, 15 weeks, 20 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is. But now the left is like, no restrictions at all. The child is born, and 2 minutes before they're delivered, you can abort them. And if you don't have that, then you're not on our team. So they've gone so far left that they've lost any centrist support that they would have. This could have been done in the 1990s, but again, they've never wanted to do it because then you don't have a campaign issue.
So why has it escalated so much? Like, why has this issue gone so radically left? It's almost like I mean, there's gotta be some leftists that are like, "All right, I'm with you on most stuff." Maybe even they're a little bit, like, down with the socialism and the communism stuff. But on this, I mean, how could a sane human being be like, "Oh, yeah, up until 8, 9 months, yeah, that's okay." Like, they have to be feeling pressured to go along with this, it seems.
Because the Democrats let Dracula into the House. They embraced the far left. They embraced the socialists. They embraced all that college craziness that we saw 8, 10 years ago that's now mainstream craziness. They embraced that and they let that in because they're like, we're going to be the big tent party, and gender's no longer a thing. It's a social construct. And if you want to identify as a cat, that's perfect. And burning down an AutoZone, that's an expression of rage, and that's beautiful, and that's part of democracy. Let's bring you in because we want to make this a big tent party to have as much support as we can. Now they're in the door. Now they've taken over. They're not the fringe of the party anymore. They run the show. So in order to maintain that base, they got to go with it. So that's what happens. They should have turned their backs to them. They should have said, grow up. There's two genders. No, you can't identify as a cat. I like the fact that we have to have that debate. You're a human. You can't identify as a cat. You can't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a woman. If you want to self-apply that and you want to identify as that, be my guest, live your life. But to force others, then, okay, well, then now we're going to play on the same team where, this 17-year-old is going to go into your daughter's dressing room. Like, those are now conversations that we have to have because the left has embraced those positions.
It's almost like if you like an old person learning TikTok because they feel like they have to for their job to stay relevant, like they're an actor or a comedian or whatever. Like you know how that feels. You're like, oh, that's cringy and kind of awkward. Like I wonder if that is what the Democratic Party was thinking. They're like, let's embrace what we think is the youth, or the next wave of progressivism, which is all this trans bullshit and the CRT stuff. And maybe they just figured, all right, this is the future. This is where all the young people are at. Ugh.
I think they were hoping they'd outgrow it.
Really? Oh my gosh. Right. They're like, well, probably this is just a phase.
No, because we've catered to it, and then when these kids got out of college, the job market caters to them. Like, I was watching the Project Veritas.
Right.
They were talking about the work environment at Twitter. Like, apparently, if you work there, you could take months off for mental health. You can work 4 hours a week. Like, I'm not that much older than these guys. I'm 40 years old. But like when I started in the working world, like you had to show up. You had to show up at a certain time, and you had to stay a certain number of hours. I didn't get to,
Wow.
say I feel sad. I'm going to go take the next 4 weeks off. I didn't get to
No
do that.
way. There was like, and I had a day job up until like 5 months ago, and like I maybe it's because how I was kind of brought into the working world, like very easily would not take lunch breaks, like very much overtime all the time, phasing out a lunch break because you do that as part of not kissing up to your boss, but like you do that as part of your like, I'm here to work, I don't want to be fired. Like there was always fear of not doing enough, and like I guess that's gone now, under the guise of like, oh, mental health, or like I'm feeling gay today, I have to take off.
Fear and judgment and shame, three things that we've lost terribly, have been terrible tragedies in our society, that we can't judge and shame people anymore. That's a great thing. You don't want to be judged as lazy. You don't want to be shamed for
Right.
doing a poor job. You want to have pride in what you do, and we've taken those things away. We've taken competition away, and now everything has to be viewed through a lens of how it makes you feel. Well, how does it make you feel? It's not the output, it's what do you think about it? And we got to get back to that. But hopefully, I do see some, like, there's some little glimmers here and there of the pendulum going back the other way. So I see it, especially in corporate America, like with Netflix, they sent out a
Yes.
memo to their employees saying, hey, you may work on projects that you don't agree with, but guess what? That's your job, and you suck it up. And I was proud to see that. I'm like, thank you for someone standing up to these children, because that's called being an adult. Not everything you do in life. I tell my kids that all the time. Not everything is going to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but that's not what life is about. Sometimes you got to do things that you don't want to do.
And I heard that part of that Netflix memo is because Ricky Gervais is coming out with a new special, and it's gonna be like very feisty and in his classic style. I mean, if it's anything like that speech he gave at the last award ceremony he hosted, I'm gonna be very looking forward to it. So that's interesting what you said about, like, right, their metrics are in the feelings, which are like very hard for anybody to measure. It's very hard for anybody to judge what kind of a job you're doing if it's based on feelings, and all this stuff has kind of gone out the window, like self-responsibility. Right. There absolutely are good types of shame, good types of guilt. Like it's not all bad. Some body shaming is good. Like it's sometimes you straight up just need to lose weight and it's not that big a deal.
Sometimes it is hard to hear, but think about every great decision that you've ever made that's changed your life. The root of it was probably shame. Someone or something happened that made you feel shame about your condition, and that was the spark that motivated you to fix it. I've been there. I know lots of people have. It's a great motivator, and it's one of those things that it hurts at the time, but you look back on it afterwards, you go, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Right. It's like you're ashamed, like oh, I'm ashamed I'm not more successful like in this arena. Or you think about like, how would I feel if in 10 years like I wasn't further ahead in this one, area of my life. It's like current shame or like future shame is a powerful
I'm
motivator.
shamed going on this podcast right now because I'm looking at your prowess and I got to change my style. I got to up my game.
I thought you were just like, I'm ashamed to be on this
I'm
podcast.
ashamed to be on this podcast.
Like just straight up, I've Googled you. I'm ashamed to be on this podcast, Chrissy. I've read that you were January 6th. I'm ashamed to be here. Wow, that's really interesting.
I'm reading your chat. You got like the shame of being an alt-right Republican. I love that people throw the Nazi stuff at me. I'm Jewish. I love when people hurl.
They could be calling me this. Who even knows? I've been called alt-right.
I love when like the Reich, and I love like the Nazi symbolism being thrown in there. And then I'm Jewish. And you know what they say when I say I'm Jewish? Like, you don't look Jewish. Like, aha, who's the racist now? What am I supposed to have payas and a yarmulke? Come on.
You know what they say? Two wrongs don't make a Reich.
They
So my dad always used to. No, I'm actually half German, so I don't know.
I'm married to a German.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think all of these insults are losing their strength.
It is. It's like I've been called a Nazi like 16 times since breakfast. Like, up your game.
Mm-hmm.
Think of something else. Come on.
Do something better. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? I guess as an attorney, what is the most frustrating part of witnessing this like Roe v. Wade, basically this drama? Like for me, it's like I think people are being dumb and not realizing, no, it's going to come down to the states, which is not that big a deal. And like there's people who can't practice their Second Amendment rights. They have to, if they want to do a constitutional or they want to do a concealed carry or something, like, well, the state you live in might not let you do that. So sometimes you have to move, or if you really want to go buy a gun, you have to go out of state. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal. And if you really want an abortion and you can't do it in your state, like, well, I guess it depends how bad you want it then. Like, and if you're willing to travel, if it's that important to you.
Here's the thing. What gets me the most is not the legal schematics of it, because Roe was a poorly reasoned opinion in terms of a constitutional argument. This is not even getting into the politics or the social issue of abortion. It's just, is this right enumerated in the Constitution, or is it reserved to the states? So the intellectual dishonesty of seeing people come out and say, oh my God, when Roe is overturned, abortion is over. It is not over. In fact, you're going to be able to get an abortion in the overwhelming majority of states. It's going to be a states issue. It's going back to the states. States like California and New York, it's going to be safe and secure, and you're probably going to be able to get it up until the moment of birth. That's just how it's going to be, whether you agree with it or not. There are other states where you're not, and there's some states where there are going to be reasonable restrictions, heartbeat, 15 weeks, whatever the case may be. But in terms of finding a federally protected right in the 14th Amendment to an abortion, the reasoning of that is flawed. It should be an issue that's reserved to the people's representatives in your state. If you are pro-abortion, then vote for someone in your state who's going to be pro-abortion. It's that simple. There's so many issues that are reserved to the states that the federal government doesn't have a hand in. We don't have a federally protected right in. And Florida, we're probably going to have 15 weeks or something like to that effect. New York's going to have it up until the moment of birth. Some states are not. So abortion's not going anywhere. It's just the power of abortion is going back to the states.
Yeah, and someone in the chat said, like, I'm pro women making better choices before the issue of abortion ever comes up. Like, wow, what a reasonable point of view. And it's like, of course, I hope most people feel this way. It just seems like the Democratic Party is increasingly becoming the party of people who don't want to take any responsibility for their life whatsoever and want the government to be their daddy literally in the I feel like they glamorize single motherhood, they glamorize killing your kid. It's just like it's gotten pretty disgusting. And I was like I might even still be a registered Democrat. I was a huge feminist in college. I was all about all this stuff, and it's like embarrassing to think that I used to be all about this, but I guess that's just, being in your 20s. But it feels like it's gotten so much worse and so much more crazy.
Well, it's become that. I mean, you look at the Democrats, you look at Kennedy and Clinton by today's standards would be far right Republicans. It's no longer about at doing what you can for your country. It's what can your country do for you without any accountability. The whole idea of a student loan, that I'm going to borrow money and then one day, oh, this is hard. I don't like making these monthly payments. Government, you pay for this. And we're passing that on to the overwhelming number of people who don't go to college. Why should they absorb your psychology degree? Why should they absorb your communications degree? It's not their responsibility. You made a choice. And then the disconnect there. So how can an 18-year-old not have the wherewithal to know that borrowing $100,000 one day you're going to have to pay it back? But at 12 years old, they can say, I want to take puberty blockers. How does that work?
Right.
Someone needs to explain that to me like I'm two, because I can't understand it.
Well, it's because if 12-year-olds can make that decision, then whatever is in favor of having a big pharma customer for life and possibly not reproducing, I think that's what they want to encourage.
Population control.
For sure. And we're like well below replacement at this point, but people don't want to talk about that. Siege says, I'm a white guy living in Africa. Can't tell you how many times I've unjustifiably been called a racist simply for disagreeing with something. I'm used to it at this point. Yeah.
It doesn't have the effect it used to. I get called a racist all the time. If that makes you feel better, I mean, be my guest. It doesn't have the impact, and it's sad because that word should have an impact. It should be impactful. When someone calls you a racist, you're like, oh my God, that's the worst thing you can call somebody. But it's lobbed around and thrown out there so frequently, so recklessly, that it's lost its meaning.
Yeah. And you also can't be there's a lot of folks who still are very afraid of being slapped with that label, and that's the idea. They want to silence you. They want to squelch your activism. You're getting involved because they know that people are afraid of still being called that. Um, I want to talk about. Oh, I haven't seen 2000 Mules yet, but it's like so many. Everyone's tagging it in because I did last week was like a big week. I did Gutfeld and Newsmax, and everyone's like tagging, like talk about 2000 Mules, and I'm like, I haven't seen it. Like I feel horrible. But I want to know from a lawyer perspective, what about 2000 Mules for you is like compelling and actionable here?
Well, first of all, hats off to Dinesh D'Souza. I know Dinesh D'Souza. He's been a guest on my show. I've spent time with him. He's a brilliant filmmaker. And what he's done, he didn't just come out with talking points. He came out, he did the homework. I recommend you find it. Someone sent me 2000 Mules for free. I know it's out there for $30. I know that's a little pricey to watch something because there's so much cheap entertainment. I think he's going to lower the price. But there are ways to get it. If you're resourceful, you'll find a way. Someone sent it to me for free. It is worth it. Whatever you got to pay, sit down and watch it, because the way he breaks it down with the data and how they followed the cell phone data of these people who were going from Dropbox to Dropbox with dozens and dozens of ballots each, you see right then and there how this whole process played out. Now, I've been on a lot of shows and I've argued with a lot of people about the Dominion thing, and people saying there were satellites at the Vatican and this and that. I don't believe that for a minute. And I think if we go down the Dominion path, we're losing the argument. Was there election fraud? Absolutely. Was it centralized in particular districts? Yes, that made the difference. It was focused in a couple of states, a couple of swing states. And this is how they did it. It was the mail-in voting. We saw the writing on the wall when COVID hit and they came out with the COVID relief bill. And what's in the bill? Mail-in voting. The Republicans, I don't blame the Democrats because I expect this kind of thing from them. I blame the Republicans for being reactive and not proactive, for hitting me up for money every 15 minutes via email when they should have had their attorneys that your RNC dues paid for in the states filing injunctions in spring of 2020 saying you can't circumvent state law under the guise of a pandemic. Every state, you want to talk about power reserved to the states, every state decides the practice, protocol, and manner and time, date of their elections, early voting, where you vote, how you vote. All of it's decided by state law. And COVID came in, they said, oh my God, if you stand in line, you're going to die. So you have to send in this unsolicited mail-in ballot that we can't track the signature. We have no idea who signed it. We have no idea if it's even a real person, but COVID. So don't question it, just do it. And we went along with it. And that led the way for them to be able to do this. Now, you could say what you want about the 2020 election. Was there opportunity for fraud given COVID and given the mail-in voting? Yes, there was. And 2000 Mules proves that and proves how it was done.
I was reading here, justthenews.com says Dinesh D'Souza's 2000 Mules ballot trafficking expose has the evidence, but can it get a hearing? What would have to happen for something more to happen here?
You'd have to have politicians who were actually interested in pursuing this. And so many on the right have run from this issue, predominantly because they didn't want to see Trump in office any more than Democrats did. Yeah, it's true. Look, one thing, I have voted for Democrats in my life. I voted for Republicans. I'm a reluctant Republican because I just can't support the Democrat Party.
A reluctican. I like that.
100%. There are issues that I'm liberal about. There are issues that I'm conservative about. I'm a free thinking American, but the fact remains is that the Republican Party, Trump exposed, he was never going to drain the swamp. One person can't unilaterally do that. He exposed it. He exposed it. The things that you and I are discussing today, we never would have talked about 5-6 years ago. He changed the political landscape.
I wouldn't have even had a podcast. Like I wouldn't have even, like, it was just him saying fake news. And then suddenly one day I was like, oh my God.
There wouldn't be a market for you to have a podcast because people wouldn't tune in. Now they tune in to see people like you because Fox News is full of it. CNN is full of it. The fake news. We realize that it's a big swamp, and it's deep on both sides. And really, at the root of it are people that are part of this political class. It's like George Carlin said, they're part of the club and you're not in it. And it's this political class where people get into office and they stay there for 30, 40 years getting rich. And for so often and so long in our lives, we just kind of thought it was the way it was and we overlooked it. We didn't realize until he came in. So you could say what you will. Trump did a lot of great things. He made a lot of mistakes. But if there's one thing he did, he exposed it. He showed us how the sausage is made.
But it's like we still have to try to change the system, and we have to work with the system we have. Like we both know so many great people that are going to be running. Like we both know Tina Forte, and also Royce White is someone, he's running against Ilhan Omar, and it's like, well, we don't have viable third party options, so so many folks that probably would prefer to run libertarian. It's like, well, it's kind of almost hopeless, even though we've made strides, like Larry Johnson made strides, like even like Larry Sharp ran in New York as a libertarian, I think God, I should know this, for mayor, I think. Yeah. And it just seems so hopeless to run third party. So it's like we have to work within this two-party system. And I have to try to not like lose faith, but it's hard to get your hopes up because you realize like, what chance does like the average little guy have, because you need so much money just to run.
Look, the system is not set up for outsiders, which is why, every once in a while you see an upset. But a third party run, and I remember after 2020, people were talking about, let's start a Patriot Party, and John Cardillo and I was saying, no, that's a terrible idea. I know the sentiment is there, like you want to reject the Republican Party and start something new. Here's what I say: to hell with the Republican Party. I want to take your infrastructure. I want to take your money. I want to take your fundraising base. I want to take everything you have in place. I just want to remove the players and put America first conservatives in. So don't go trying to reinvent the wheel. Do what the far left did with the Democrat Party. Do what the socialists did with the Democrat Party. You already have the infrastructure and the fundraising there. Just put the right people in. And I mean, we'll see tonight. We'll see with Pennsylvania, with Kathy Barnett. I mean, does she upset Dr. Oz? And that's even going against a Trump endorsement.
Wow,
so that goes to show that, it's not all about Donald Trump. It's not all about one person. It's a movement that's far bigger than one man. So, let's see what happens tonight in Pennsylvania.
Right, because there's candidates who like, don't want Trump's endorsement. There's candidates, Democratic candidates who like, definitely don't want Biden's endorsement. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm seeing a couple of interesting comments here from Leonard Trust Fund over on Rockfin. No more weeks of voting. Make it 2 days or a weekend. Yeah, that makes the most sense. Like, why do we need so much time to vote? We don't.
Amid COVID, we were watching, you had to go out in person to get a vaccine. Why can't people go out in person to vote? Like, okay.
Yeah, vote. Yeah. Where are the mail-in syringes coming to your house? Like,
the mail-in COVID tests.
Do it yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. No, look, your employer gives you the day off. They can't fire you. There are polling places in every neighborhood. You mean to tell me you can't? I mean, unless you're infirm, unless you're elderly and you just can't do it. I totally understand it. We have absentee ballots. We've had those for as long as I can remember. But like ordinary, healthy Americans can't stand in line. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, you can go to the DMV. You can go, what else do you have to do?
You stand in line for a damn iPhone, for $1,000 iPhone.
Yes. People do that every year. Like me, I'm waiting for this to like crap out and die. It's I think it's at least 6 years old. That's what's fun. Waiting for things to die. Yeah, it's frustrating. We'll see what happens though. Who are you excited about other than Tina Forte, who I adore?
Well, I love Tina. Tina's a dear friend. I've gotten to know her over the years, and she's phenomenal. I've been very honest with her that she's got a real uphill battle, and the odds are not great. Of course, she's running it's a plus 14, plus 15 district. AOC is a political.
What does that mean when something is plus 14, like you said, for New York? Like
it means there's a whole lot more Democrats than Republicans. Like,
okay, so it's like
double digits. It's almost unwinnable for a Republican. It's a safe blue district. But the other thing, to AOC's credit, Look, she's not a mental giant. She's not a policy wonk, but she plays the game so well. She's got the look. She knows the talking points, the media. She has at least some media. I mean, she does get made fun of a lot, but she's safe in that seat probably for the rest of her life. She'll be a Nancy Pelosi one day, and she's going to get shit rich doing it. She's going to be worth $500 million one day. Watch.
Wow. That's so depressing. It's so depressing, Eric.
It's the times in which we live.
Maybe she could open up her own bar. And she could what would be in an AOC cocktail? I don't know. It's just one cocktail and everybody has to share it.
Everybody has to share it. Exactly.
Socialism. How did you meet Bob Dunlop, your podcast co-host? And how did you guys come to do this show together?
He had been following me on social media, and he reached out to me one day and said, I have been propositioned by New Right Network to create a show, and I'd like to do it with you. And I said, sure, I'd love to. So overnight, we got with the people, Ryan Ash, who's the head of New Right Network. We got together with him and we conceptualized a weekly wrap up with Bob and Eric. And we did this show for, I think we did 70 episodes. And then we had Jeff Dornick and JD Rucker came on as guests on our show. And after the show, they said, call me. And they poached us to their network. So little shady, podcasting infighting. So they pulled us over to Freedom First Network in July of 2020. And we went over there and we changed the show to Bob and Eric Save America. And now we're going to be going on season 4, starting July 13th of that show. And again, it's really the same concept as the original show. We're just, look at social commentary, politics, current events, weighing in on what's going on, and certainly no shortage of material, but it's been a blessing and so much gratitude to be able to do this.
And what is Bob's background? Does he have a law background as well?
No, he's a business owner. He owns, he's owned and bought and sold lots of businesses. He's a very successful entrepreneur in North Carolina. He just started. He runs a day spa now. That's the new business he's in. Does Botox and all those. He has
happy
a whole staff
endings.
over there.
Oh no, just skin stuff.
Yeah, no massages. They don't do massages. They do like some facials and things like that over there. But he's owned software companies. He's owned a lot of businesses. Very successful and really great co-host to have. I've been very delighted to have him as a partner.
And you guys do that? Do you do that together? Like, do you stream, or are you together in studio?
No, I live in South Florida. He lives in North Carolina. Okay. We do it remotely. We use streaming software like this, and given that this is the way of the world, you could be anywhere and meet with anybody. So we do that every Saturday, and we just wrapped up season 3. We've got season 4 starting July 13th. We're also on all the podcasting platforms, iTunes, Google Podcasts. We're on Rumble, YouTube. Ooh. You name it, we're there. Yeah, Rumble. We got a big following on Rumble. Surprisingly, I don't even have a Rumble account. I never spend any time there. I go there to check out our videos once in a while. It's like 100,000 views. So thank you, Rumble. Whatever you guys are doing.
That's great. Have you ever met him in person?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, we know each other very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a nice, it's a good comment from America Floats. We need public sentencing and punishment for these people. It will continue happening if we don't change how we treat the elite traitors. Yeah, but what can anybody? Yeah, I mean, what can we do? We can just continue to create awareness and point out hypocrisy and point out examples that we see.
We kind of have to breed it out of the system. Accountability. Very difficult, because if there was any sense of accountability, Hillary Clinton would have gone to prison in Arkansas in 1979. Instead, 4 decades later and countless bodies behind her, she's still walking free. It is a 2-tier justice system, and being in that justice system, I could be the first to attest that, yeah, there is a 2-tier justice system. And really, it's not necessarily who it's more, how much you're able to pay. There's a very different system for people that have means and those that don't. And that's the unfortunate reality of this imperfect justice system. I think most of the time, at least my experience with it, I think most of the time it works, but that's not saying much, because, I mean, at least it's not like Saudi Arabia where we chop your hand off for shoplifting. We have a better system than that, but not saying it's a whole lot better. So is there going to be accountability for these people? I don't think we're going to see that. I don't like to pin my hopes to that, because I think we pinned our hopes to the Durham report and this, and something was going to happen. And we have the Sussman trial going on right now, but understand he's a really low player. And the fact that he's in trial shows that he didn't cooperate. The fact that Ghislaine Maxwell went to trial, she didn't cooperate. They couldn't get the information out of her. How come she got convicted of human trafficking? We don't know to whom she trafficked. Who were the clients? Who was receiving the services? You can't have supply without a demand. and we don't know the demand. So are these people not getting deals? I mean, come on. If I were the U.S. attorney, I'd be coming at her saying, we will give you immunity. Just name names, for crying out loud.
Oh my God. They shut that story up so quickly and so consistently. That's
You
really
wonder,
wild.
but Chrissy, you wonder what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, you really wonder, like, these smoke-filled rooms, like, they do exist. And you wonder, like, hey, we'll take care of your family. We'll do this. There's,
Yes.
$100 million waiting for
Everybody
you in a
has a
Swiss bank
price.
account.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, you can have Epstein Island for a weekend. You and your family just have a party, like Jesus. Yeah, it's crazy. And you mentioned on a previous show, like, or maybe in your tweets as well, like Newsmax isn't your friend, Fox is not your friend. Well, then where do we go? I mean, I enjoy the Daily Wire. I think OAN is decent. I mean, ultimately you want to check out as many sources as you can and then decide for yourself, right? But and then you've also said, like, always be red pilling, and I want to know what you mean by that and how others can help with that.
Always be red pilling means that we live in an era where people are misinformed and underinformed, and we live in basically a country of low information citizens, and that can exist both on the right and the left. People are just, they're not tuned into what's going on. Not everybody's a news junkie. They get their information from Facebook. They get their information from, their aunt told them. So they're walking around believing, you know don't say gay. That's a prime example. There are people out there that believe that Ron DeSantis signed a law in the state of Florida that makes it a crime to say the word gay. They believe that.
Crazy.
They also, go back a couple years to Ferguson, the hands up, don't shoot. They believe that narrative, even though it's been disproved. So now with the whole Roe v. Wade thing, oh my God, Roe v. Wade's overturned. You're not going to be able to get an abortion. They believe that because it's low information and perhaps not their fault. It's just how they are. So it's
Soundbitey. Yeah.
very soundbitey. So it's our job. It's our job to arm ourselves with information and to educate others. And you have opportunities to do that every day. You don't have to have a big social media following. Talk to the mailman, talk to your next door neighbor, talk to the waiter. I can't tell you how many times a waiter will be like, here are today's specials. And next thing you know, we're talking about Tower 7 and September 11th. I mean, that's just how my mind
You have
operates.
to be careful though. Like what if I try to red pill my hairstylist and she's not down? It's like, it's not always easy to find.
Let me give you some pointers there, because that's a really good point to make. Obviously, look, you can have a great relationship with your next door neighbor and never know their politics, and God forbid, they don't have the same political affiliation you do, and it kills your relationship. I've been there, believe me. I've got relationships that are severed because of politics. I think all of us have experienced that. So the way you red pill is you have to look for your opening. You don't just come out and go, oh my God, let me tell you about Davos and Bilderberg. You don't do that. You look for an opening. Guy at the hardware store is complaining, oh my God, I'm trying to get some plywood, and I can't get it. And they're telling me it's going to be 6 months. Supply chain's falling apart. Yeah, supply chain's falling apart. The administration's really doing a terrible job. I know. Boom, you got your end. Let's talk about Joe Biden. Let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. Let's talk about what the administration's doing. Let's talk about how they got there. Let's talk about the election. You got to work it in there. Okay. So you don't just come out full force, find your opening, and then you move. But arm yourself with information so you could be the one to teach them. I'm not trying to change your mind. I just want to plant a seed in your head so you could go do the research on your own and find out that I'm right.
True. Yeah. Right, because it's called, like, I was going to ask you about that in Florida. It's actually called the Parental Rights in Education Bill. And I'm just so impressed with DeSantis, and I don't know what your thoughts are, because he's the definition of proactive right now with the uh instating, victims of Communism Day in schools, and it's like he's really going above and beyond, like, I think to fight off everything that's ingrained, from CRT to ESG scores, I think, which if we ultimately, they were proposing something that, like, each state would get an ESG score, which affects, like, investing. So you could have a state that's doing really well economically, maybe like Florida, but they're pushing this, like, well, victims of Communism Day is a thing that's being taught in schools. So now that they have a bad, like, social score, a bad state social score for that, which is so freaking scary. Like, the residents of a state could actually be voting for something and happy with it, but, like, the powers that be declare with the ESG score that, oh, well, you get a low score, so ultimately you're not going to get as much funding.
Well, living in his state, I could tell you he's an amazing governor, and people love him. People across the aisles love him. It's you'll meet Democrats, you'll meet apolitical people who just think he's doing a phenomenal job. He's a leader. He's fighting the culture war, which so many Democrats, so many conservatives are so afraid to do that. He's actually fighting the culture war because he understands the marriage of politics and culture, and he's pushing back on that. As far as COVID, he passed the test with flying colors. He was putting us back in May of 2020. We were functional, we're operating, we're opening our businesses and going about life while the rest of the country was still locked down for another year or more. He's a doer above all things. He's not just a talker, he's a doer. He handles the media brilliantly. He doesn't give them anything. He doesn't give them anything where they can run to CNN and host a panel and talk about it all week. He's really pragmatic. He's smart. He's so sharp. He's a great guy. I've met him. He's an absolute nice guy. Yeah, we talked.
Where'd you meet him?
I met him a couple summers ago. We were at a fundraiser. Actually, no, not even a fundraiser. We were at just a dinner, some Palm Beach Republican Club dinner, and he was there, and he was just like standing off by himself. And I cornered him for a couple minutes, and we just chatted. We were talking about criminal justice reform, and he's a great guy, and he's gonna make a great president. I tell you, I think 2028. He's running, and I'd love to see Trump pass the torch to him and put his endorsement behind him. If Trump wants to run a second term, I'll support that 100%. But if I could have my choice, I'd have DeSantis in 2024.
Okay. Do you think he'll run?
No, he won't challenge Trump. He's smarter than that.
Okay.
He's going to be politically savvy. He's going to win his election here in Florida. He's going to be our governor for another 4 years, and then I'd like to see at that point, if Trump gets in office in 2024, that he puts all his political clout behind DeSantis for 2028. The worst thing we could see, honestly, would be a Trump DeSantis ticket, because then not only do we lose a great governor in Florida, vice president's an ineffectual position. He's not going to do anything. He's a talented guy, and he needs to be somewhere where he can do something.
Yeah, I mean, look at Kamala. She sucks.
But she shows how insignificant the position is, because she's completely incompetent. But it doesn't seem to change anything. The whole administration's incompetent. But fortunately, our Constitution doesn't give our vice president a lot of power.
No, and everybody supports her, and I can't believe Biden is still kicking. Like he must have clones. Like he must have body doubles. I don't know, except for the time that he shook thin air. Nobody was there. That probably was him.
No, I think they pump him full of anti-dementia meds, and then they wheel him out for a limited amount of time and then take him back before he can answer any questions. He's very scripted. He's very handled.
Yeah. He probably has a lot of handlers, a lot of diapers. We'll see what happens. Okay, I like the sound of that. I like DeSantis staying in Florida another 4 years, and then come out guns blazing for 2028.
He's very young too. He's only 43. So he's got time.
What? Oh my gosh. Wow. He's the perfect man, and he's taken. No, it's okay. It's all good. We can share. Eric, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people listen to your podcast? Where can people follow you?
So on all social media platforms at Eric M. Matheny, Twitter, Getter, CloudHub, and Truth Social. I'm on Gab. I don't spend a lot of time there, but I'm there. Eric M. Matheny. Podcast Bob and Eric Save America. We stream every Saturday. We're coming back July 13th, so you can find us. We're on Periscope, Facebook Live, Twitch. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube. And then on the audio formats, we're on iTunes and Google Podcasts.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It was so great chatting with you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
We'll have to reciprocate. You'll have to come on my show.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you everybody in the chat for your comments and questions and all that good stuff. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.